All right, and we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Empathy and Automation. I'm your host, Sharon Steed. If this is your first time here, hello, hi, welcome. I am a keynote speaker and empathy consultant and a person who stutters. And this is a show that is about how do we keep humanity at the center of our overwhelmingly tech obsessed lives. So today I have an incredible guest. She is the founder of iWill therapy. And yeah, come on in here. Shipra Dawar. Did I say that right?
That's
Shipra Dawar.
Shipra Dawar, yes.
Okay, sorry. Well, hello, hi. I am so
Hi.
excited to talk to you. I'm so happy you're here. Uh, Tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much, Sharon. First of all, congratulations. This is a great show, a great topic. Empathy in automation is something that we need to discuss now more than ever. I am Shipra, and I'm the founder of one of the leading startups in mental health from India called iWill Therapy, and also Geeta Therapeutics, which is basically in Hindi first AI model for mental health for mild to moderate issues of depression and anxiety that was also supported by Microsoft's accessibility fund. And apart from that, I'm a very highly spiritual person, learning and all the time. Also, someone who has had a lived experience with depression. So, yeah, all of that. And I'm just so glad to be there today on this show and speak about a topic that's really dear to me.
Yeah, so you said that you've like had experiences with depression. As we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, I have also off and on in my life struggled with depression and anxiety. I feel like now that I'm a little bit older, I think that I've begun to sort of balance out and figure out, how to sort of function in a way like that sort of keeps a lot of those feelings and those tendencies a little bit more controlled. But, I know how it feels to not want to get out of bed or to, have every intention of trying to get things done or being like, okay, I'm going to do, these four things, and you can't even begin. So, how did your experience with depression inspire you to begin iWill therapy?
Thank you so much, Aaron, and that's a great question. So, I was a really young girl at college. I am from India, and I had gone to Australia for my education, and this was the first time I was away from my family. And the two cultures are very different, and I wanted to do my best. But when I was there, I started missing my family a lot. I felt that I wasn't able to keep up the pace with the world that I was suddenly put in, and it was too much pressure. Also, there were other things that were happening back home, a combination of which just put me into a place where, like you mentioned, it was very difficult for me to get out of my bed, very difficult for me to attend my classes, very difficult for me to be my usual best. I mean, I usually am very chatty. I'm the one who'll always take initiative, and I was that student. But when I was there in this state, I was not myself, and that was so. Depression actually becomes a loop. So when you are sad and when you are empty, it doesn't allow you to function in the ways that you would have otherwise. And then when you're not functioning in that your own self and in your own element, then you get further, the emptiness and the sadness. And so it becomes a loop until it just becomes very difficult for you to even get out of bed or just do basic things that otherwise come so naturally to us humans. And I was there, and one of my professors did spot this change in me, that when I was there on the first day of the orientation, I was a completely different person, and suddenly I've become very recluse, not attending my classes. And he was very kind enough to call me in one of his lectures, and then after the lecture he spoke to me and he said, what's off and what's wrong? You're away from your family. Do you need some support? Do you need some help? And very hesitatingly I said that I'm fine, but I think he could see that I'm not. And he said, why don't you go and meet a therapist? Now, Sharon, I come from a country where mental health is a big taboo. And at that time, it was a bigger taboo than what it is right now. So I said, well, I'm sane. That was the first word that came out of my mouth. And he said, well, only sane people recognize it as a problem and fix it. So if you are sane, then take the right step. Talk to someone. You're away from your family, and the therapist is it's just okay to speak to the therapist. And his words did stay with me. And I took the help at the time. I went to the student campus counselor, and I saw that her room was filled with a lot of students like me. And at that moment I felt seen. I did not feel the shame anymore that it's just happening to me. And the rest is history. Of course, I got better with the therapy. I could ace in my education curriculum. I could do the things that I was there for. I could make my family proud. And I think that became a big inspiration for me, Sharon. Two in these two things. One, that somebody needs to be coaching you that you need help, that you create a platform, you create an awareness platform, you create a voice that coaches people to identify when they have a problem. And then the second bit of it is the solutionering. Now, I was in Australia. Luckily, I had campus counselors, but at campus also many people do not have access to therapy, do not have access to help. So those two things combined later in my life did inspire me to do a lot of work in mental health. And yeah, it's a very personal journey and story, and a very personal inspiration as well.
So, how do you feel about combining technology with something as personal as mental health? Because it feels like those two things are kind of at odds. And so, how did you get to the point where you said, hey, okay, I think that these two things can work very well together to improve, our experiences as people. But like, how did you convince people that combining those two things is actually a really good idea?
That's a great question, Sharon. And you're so right that tech almost looks like at loggerheads with therapy, which is all empathy, all human. Now, in India or in most part of the world, we have very few therapists per the population that needs mental health. If I talk about the Indian stats, there are only 0.07 psychologists per 100K population. We are very, very, very low on that resource of therapy. So, first of all, the people who need mental health and the people who can provide mental health, there's no balance between demand and supply. So, tech had to be one of the key levers of the solution. The second bit, that while there are 300 million people in India who need some form of mental health intervention, only about 10% need very severe care, or care that is very extensive. There are many people at the spectrum where they are at the preventative level or mild levels. So the idea really was, how can we make a tech enabled system that understands the person with lived experience at the center, as I was understood at the time, and thereby for people who have mild to moderate issues, they can be catered by an AI based solution which is built on empathy, which is built by clinicians, which is built by people with lived experience at the center of the technology, so that empathy becomes the cornerstone of the tech itself. And then for people who have more severe cases can actually be identified through the AI system, through the assessments, and they can get this help from therapists either online through the platform or even in person at their clinics, because then they need that severe care. So I think that the idea was taking, as you and I were discussing before we started the show, they're taking whatever is available and creating something that actually solves for the people who need mental health. And Sharon, mental health is such a personal experience. Um, is 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 uh, is is something that is so key to a person's life, that their dignity and that their privacy and that their emotions need to be at the center of the solution. So
Mhm.
when we built the AI models of Geeta, our focus was, how do we enable that? How does that person who's seeking help from Geeta feel like that my privacy, my needs, and my dignity is respected by this model and not overstepping? So, therefore, only mild to moderate or even early moderate cases by the AI therapy, and then ensuring that whenever there's a little up and down in a person's mental health situation, bringing the human in loop. So it's a constant, it's still a constant action and a very conscious uh, building of this technology that we continue to do, so that empathy is retained and we solve for the massive supply and demand gap that exists.
Mhm. You said something that I thought was incredibly interesting in that, you had a positive connotation between AI and just connection with people. So I have talked to a lot of people on the show, and then just like a lot of people just out in the world, right? And I think that, well, no, I mean, like it's true. AI is an incredibly hot topic right now. And overwhelmingly, I think that a lot of people feel very afraid of what like AI is going to take away, right? And you said, no, 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 hold on. AI is actually going to be able to help us do a lot of other things. And a lot of people, have said that, like, but you came at it from a place of of just such positivity, and in a way where we are, going to use this technology to help improve people's mental health. And I don't think I've heard anyone speak as positively about AI as you just did. So, where is that coming from? Because I feel like we're inundated with people being like, this is really bad. It's going to take away jobs. It's going to make us dumb. It's going to make us lazy and da 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 da. And you're like, no, 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 no. Like it's made by humans. And therefore, it's actually going to be incredibly beneficial to us as humans. How did you come to that conclusion?
That's a great question, Sharon. And I do understand that repetition, every technology, and certainly something as powerful as AI, obviously does rake in a lot of anxiety and fear on how are we building this? Is it even responsible? I think the positive attitude towards AI comes from two primary places. First, that if we know the limitation of AI, we can use it to its best advantage. So we know that therapists at the moderate to severe cases are needed, and that human intervention at that layer is needed. So then we restrict AI to do something that it can do best, which is to take away the load from the therapist who's not even able to cater to these people who otherwise who don't have help to solve specifically for milder concerns. And by that focus, we can actually train the AI really good, because the good thing is that AI is being built by human, so it can be shaped by humans further for whatever specific task we want it to be shaped for. I mean, it's a technology, it's a raw technology, sure, but it's something built by human beings, and therefore we can use it to our advantage for building it for micro specific specializations. Like in our case, it's mild depression, mild anxiety, mild forms of mental health that AI can really cater well to. And also, it can cater well to identifying when a person is, in need of higher help, and then becoming that interface to enable people to have that help. So, in a way, AI is really not something that we should be, in my opinion, be fearful of. Of course, the responsible use of AI is absolutely important. Of course, it's if we are in industry, we need to make sure that AI is doing what it can do best while allowing the human being to still be the boss. Because at the end of the day, we have to still see that this is a technology that is very nascent, and it's built by human beings, and it must serve our needs. But if we find a blue spot or a green spot, or a nice spot in any industry for that matter, in mental health, the entire spectrum of mild cases, we can build something that's very powerful. And also important is that since it is built by human beings, when we are further fine tuning it, like in our case for mental health, how can we ensure that a person with lived experience is on the table? How do we ensure that their voices are at the center? One of the biggest disconnects that happen in any therapy related program that's sometimes being built is that it becomes very clinically driven, which is very good, but then the voice of the person with lived experience somewhere is not taken into account. AI allows the amalgamation of the two to happen beautifully. And that's where I think our positive attitude towards the AI comes from.
So, like AI is also going to like have us just do things a lot quicker. I mean, I know that I use AI in a lot of ways, just professionally. I am a one woman business, a one woman show in every sense of the word. I don't like hire people. So, AI has helped me to just continue to move forward in a time when things are going incredibly fast, right? But I feel like it's a little bit more challenging when you are dealing with something as special and sincere as a person's mental health. So, in this world of scale and speed, how do you ensure that your platform, continues to really honor emotional nuance?
Um, to First of all, building an AI model for mental health is an ongoing, continuous process. It's something
Mhm.
that you have to consistently keep updating. Um, uh, our model has been fine tuned specifically on empathy data and ensuring that the AI is not how it is available. For its raw purposes, but it's designed for a mental health user. The empathy quotient of the model is very high. The CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy understanding of the model is very high, and the understanding of a user's innate need to be respected, the privacy, the need to be actually being listened to. I mean, the person can actually speak to the AI. AI that is available in its vanilla format is a one answer based model that you put in your query, and then whatever needs to happen, it just brings a big data dump of information to you in the fastest way possible. That's not what's the best for therapy. Therapy needs a very systematic hand holding, a very active listening skill by the AI. And so developing it for core therapy skills is one, and continuously updating the model with those aspects is part of that journey. The second is on responsible AI, Sharon. The platform starts with an assessment. It starts with an assessment that is validated, PHQ-9 for depression and GAT-7 for anxiety, only and only if the person has mild concerns or needs preventative help is when they are meeting the AI program. If a person has moderate to severe concerns, then AI can be an adjunct tool, but it's never the core or the base form of treatment. Then it always is a human, always is human therapy, tech enabled human therapy. Second, even while a person has milder concerns, our AI is being developed to catch, filter, and find words that signal any form of deviation from the norm. And the moment that happens, a human in loop system kicks in, where the AI takes a step back and the human takes the step forward. And it's a very conscious effort to build AI for safety. So it's an AI model with safety first. And that is because as we continue to evolve AI for specific cases of mental health, for specific use cases, it will probably get better and better. But currently, we want to leverage AI's potential, but not. But not allow it to do something which will risk someone's condition or risk someone's life, because mental health, I've been there and I know that one wrong advice or one off thing can actually do more harm than it can do any good. So it works with that. It's a failure first principle that AI knows when to fail.
It's so interesting to hear the role that empathy plays in just your product design. I feel that like a lot of companies out there, they don't really take empathy into account when they are creating their products. I mean, there is some of that, like just based on like a, well, I need a thing and I want to create the thing because I haven't found the thing that's out there. And so that, in itself is an inherently empathetic task of, I want to create a product for, those people who are like me. But it's really interesting to hear you talk about how exactly, you have just integrated empathy into every single part of your product at iWill. And I am so impressed and really excited. And I feel like this, I mean, like sort of to jump ahead here, I feel like this has got to be like a part of the future of therapy and mental health uh, treatment, right? Is that we are, you know, going to eventually come to a place where, if people are in some sort of crisis, then they are going to be going to a platform like yours to try and get help, right? So, is this what the future of your industry is going to look like? Do you think that, or am I off base?
No, Sharon, you're right. Technology is going to be a very key element in the future of how therapy industry will shape up, and that is because of two to three reasons. One, the supply side of therapists is not at par with the amount of mental health crises that we are facing as a population. If we just look at stats of how depression and anxiety affect people today, almost 10% of the world population has depression or anxiety that actually needs a clinical intervention. So we are talking about huge numbers here. And then if we factor in other mental health conditions like ADHD, bipolar disorder, it makes about 1 billion plus people today who absolutely need clinical intervention when it comes to mental health. And so to provide for such a huge population, the
Mhm.
answer has to be somewhere tech enabled. So, yes, technology is the future. Of course, for us to ensure that it becomes the future and a safe future, it's on the industry players like us that we build in technologies that actually do more good and reduce the harm. Because we're talking healthcare here, we are talking people's lives here, we are talking people's livelihood here as well, and their happiness, because that's what we are trying to do as therapists, as mental health professionals, as businesses in mental health. So building for technology that actually can remain to be the future, because yes, the regulation and the government allows you to function and do your job when you are providing more good than there's already there. So
Mhm.
in that sense, for us to ensure that this remains the future and it serves so many people, it's the onus and accountability of making it happen is also somewhere on us, to build responsible AI, to build responsible platforms, and to constantly generate data that we are bringing an outcome for the patients and constantly listening to them, and not forgetting that at the end of the day, we are not a product. We are not just a product. We are basically somewhere hope for people who are dealing with mental health issues. Like if I go back to my time with the lived experience, my therapist was not just, you know, another person or another service for me. It The person almost became my savior in the time. So
Mm.
there's a huge responsibility there. And yeah, so it will be the future, but we as industry players have to ensure that that future is right and worth it.
So, do you believe that there's anything that should never be automated when it comes to mental health care, right? So, either that's like talk therapy or, prescriptions or whatever it is. Is there a line that you believe we should not cross when it comes to automation and mental health?
Yes, talk therapy already, even our AI models do talk therapy, but the point there is that ensuring it's only restricted to population with milder concerns of mental health and not any more severe than that. So that's one area where AI can play very beautifully, but should be playing in that area at least for the next couple of years or more years. We shouldn't step up and shouldn't try to do anything more because, anyways, there are enough therapists to do that. Second bit, yes, prescription would be a gray area. Like, I do not want to step up and say never, because it's a never say never, and we don't know that at specifically places of crises, war, technology may have to play that role and in different situations. However, prescription of mental health related drugs is very tricky because there is an element of getting addicted to the drug. There is an element of safe usage of the medicine. There is an element of the monitoring of side effects. There is an element of a person's life. I mean, if sometimes the drugs do cause excessive sleepiness and take away a person's potential to even function in their day-to-day life, so that needs to happen all under the guidance of a human medical practitioner, a psychiatrist, so that it is safe for the person, so that it is responsible for the person, and so that the course correction can happen fast enough if there is anything that goes untowards or is, harming the patient more than helping. So yes, I mean, prescription is definitely one area where I feel that unless very extreme situations like war or crises, it should
Mhm.
not be automated.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this feels like it's almost like a little scary that like we're capable of like automating a lot of these things away that we have always sort of associated with, you know, you have to do this in person or like you have to do this over the phone. Like it is like a little bit intimidating to think that like, we might not need like a physical person to talk to when we are, trying to solve some sort of like health crisis or just like a health situation, obviously not a crisis. How do you sort of explain to people who are giving you a little bit of pushback over like, hey, I'm not comfortable with the amount of automation involved with mental health therapy and practices?
That's a great question. So first of all, it's a matter of choice for people who have the ability and have the access and the financial wherewithal to actually see a therapist in person. Then that's a choice that they always have. But we have to look at this from the lens of accessibility. We are talking about a population of more than 60 to 70% people globally who cannot afford therapy that exists in its current format. I mean, it's a very expensive service, even when you are covered, and the insurance cover may be covering you full or half. It still is a very expensive service which blocks or locks a potential large population out from it. Second, there are actually no therapists. I mean, we are constantly trying to create therapists. So we have to see it from the lens that we are building in, at least through technology, help for those who just do not have help today. I mean, it's not about somebody for whom this is a choice. It's for somebody who has nothing today, which is catering to their mental health condition. So what about them? I mean, their health needs to be looked after. They should have accessibility. And third, mental health is also a condition sometimes where a person doesn't want to step out. We have to understand that it takes time for a person to get out of the bed sometimes. And for a lot of studies that have happened on mental health and therapy, people have actually been helped if they had a technology platform early on in their treatment mix. That's because when they were completely down and out, they could at least have someone to speak to, which helped them, and they could then access other channels of helps. Because mental health can lock you in your own headspace to the point that you actually don't want to see another person. And so for a lot of people with lived experience, they actually prefer it, specifically in the early days, because that help to them is very private, is very anonymous, is very in their hands, and they are ready to take it. So from that perspective, we have to look at this from a financial angle, from the accessibility angle, and also from the angle of the choice of the person with lived experience. And therefore, platforms like these are being built, and they are also getting certain scale.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like that makes sense. I know that we sort of touched on this before, like, but like you said, a lot of people, it is hard to take that first step, and I think that this is a good way to sort of take away the barriers, right? I think a lot of the times, in order to just have, some sort of forward progress, you just have to make it as easy and as seamless as possible for people. And so, yeah, I think that this is a great way to sort of get people to like not, to at least just give it a try, right? So yeah, I think that's cool. So I kind of want to switch gears here, and sort of talk about, how, uh, talk about you as a founder and you as a worker, because you have built a company that is, incredibly empathetic, right? And, when you are dealing with anything as serious and as precious as mental health, you have to create an environment for your teams that is going to feed into, your whole sort of paradigm of, we are here to like help people help themselves, right? So I have so many questions about this, because I feel like a lot of like my own clients are like probably going to have questions of like, how do you build an empathetic team? How do you train for empathy, right? And you have seemed to do it. So let's begin with just, you and like your approach to like building this platform. So like, what is one the emotionally intelligent decision that you chose, like, while building this platform, that changed the outcome, right? So that could be just like hiring certain kind of people, or some sort of technology and thing. um I just want to know, how did you build this business in a way that was so emotionally intelligent and so empathetic?
There are many things, Sharon, that would have happened from an emotion, so not high IQ, but high EQ. That I tilted towards the EQ side of the decision. But one thing that I actually can completely, feel that it's a centerpiece of the decision making is that early on we had a platform in which we were basically connecting counselors with the users through technology, and it was a great marketplace model. There was a lot of investor money in that kind of model at the time, and it would have been an easy path out. But the problem at the time as a founder that I was plagued with is that there was no data to show any outcome that was great of the service, because it was such a marketplace service. There was no way that we were adding in any value in the platform itself. We were just acting like you have a list of therapists and a list of users, and you kind of patch the two, and then whether there is outcome happening for the patient at the end of the day, you absolutely are neither trying for it nor that's your key takeaway. I mean, you're constantly focused on selling sessions or building business or building revenue, and it was a very, very good commercial business model. And I think at the time, the emotional quotient I went that I was really helped at the time when I got therapy. Somewhere, if I'm building a platform, even if it takes longer, even if the journey is a little harder, even if it takes a little time to convince people to put money into this, it has to be a model that actually takes into account the outcomes that it needs to create for the user. It needs to do better than just becoming a sales platform of mental health sessions. And so I did refuse a lot of big money at the time, and I did say that no, our model is not generating outcomes, and we will not be actively pursuing this model. We will actually go back to the drawing board. We will look at what we can do to ensure that the people can actually be helped. How can we make therapy more effective through our platform? How can we make it a better model of care for the people who actually put their money and their souls and heart into it from the client perspective? And it was a tough journey, Sharon, because it was nowhere a very intelligent financial decision at the time. It was just an intelligent emotional decision at the time, but it has paid off, because eventually iWill therapy did become a platform of very high outcomes. iWill therapy did become a platform of a very, very high retention rate of users, and they feeling better and they getting back into their lives, to their jobs, to their, and if there is a divorce that has happened to them, then just feeling confident about themselves. So, and that has shaped a lot of our journey from there on. So from this marketplace model and refusing to be just that, to going into actual building a therapeutic model of care with humans at the center, and then taking it at the AI level also, to then be able to build an AI model which is empathic. Because if we did not have this middle layer of learning, we would have never been able to build an AI that's empathic. So I
Yeah.
think that decision really, really did help us have the journey that we are on. And if I would have taken a financial decision, then it would have been really different than the one that I did take at the time.
Wow. Okay. So it feels like you have to have a certain kind of person on your team, right? Because you very early on said, I'm not just going to take the money here, right? Or like I'm not just going to build a platform that anybody else can build because it's going to make us a lot of money. I'm going to go a different route. And so it feels like you have to have a very specific, again, kind of person on your team who is going to get behind the more human aspect of this work. So how did you train your team to think empathetically about your end user? And by that, I mean your engineers, your salespeople, your product managers. Just how did you get them to align with what your core values are here?
So that's a great question. I think, but I've been lucky. I am being very honest with you. I have had the tryst of having great team members coming in who have really themselves been so driven that at times when I had a low, they pulled me out of that, because building any business is difficult. Building a business in mental health, I think, is one of the most difficult things to do, because there is very little big money, and when there is big money, it's usually on models and platforms that are only selling and not making an impact. um, um, so one is that I was lucky. Second, as a culture, I think we have a very open culture of non-hierarchical structures, and that is important, because when you are building for empathy, you cannot have a team where you have a very high hierarchy, because a person who's speaking to the client, even as a customer agent, will know more about the client and their needs at times. The therapist who is actually interacting with the patient knows more about the patient than, say, a really good consumer behavior expert building the platform would. So, de molding the structure and enabling dialogue and for people, and I am very open, and I actually love getting feedback on everything from anyone in my team. And that is the nature of the entire team. It's not just me. Even the head therapist is like that. Even the head of clinical psychology is like that. Even, the person who just joined us, she's the entrepreneur in residence, is like that. Everybody is like that, and I think that kind of enables for greater dialogue to happen. Also allows for greater diversity of clients' ideas to come in, and just very openness to really change is the key. If someone is wrong here, then they're not bashed for being wrong, because we all are wrong at all times. And so it just allows for course correction to happen very quickly. So yes, but it's also, I would say, it's also luck. People that work here are really good,
Yeah.
and they inspire me.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think it's you know, I think a thing that a lot of companies, a lot of leaders have a hard time with is getting people on their teams who are really going to get behind them every step of the way, or people who are going to help, create and scale a culture, like that's going to be really positive and professional and all of those things. And so it seems that you have been able to do that. How much of that do you think though is people seeing what you are doing, or just like seeing who you are and modeling what you stand for?
I think as a leader, one of the things that you always need to do is, yes, model the best behavior. Like, you cannot be not empathic yourself and expect your team to build something of high empathy. That just doesn't
Yeah.
work. And it's not just empathy, it's a lot of course correction, it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of doing the hard work yourself, it's a lot of writing the like, I still write proposals and applications that we are writing for getting grants or getting new opportunities myself. And that's important, because what it does is that everybody kind of owns their work. And I believe in that. I really believe in that we are all adults working together for a greater mission. I am no one's boss. We are
Mhm.
all a team. And in that way, if I can model the best behavior, and if I can do what I am needed to do, others will eventually do what they need to do as well. And obviously that doesn't mean that there is no role of feedbacking, there is no rule of there's no role of chain of work command. All of that is there, but if we are going to look at 10 years from now, and if we are wanting to build something incredible that was never built, It has to come from a team that was all A pluses, and that only happens when we are modeling the right kind of behavior for each other, and we are also enabling each other, as opposed to trashing each other's works down. Because a lot of the times I've seen, Sharon, that in corporate environments, and I've been myself in one, it's always about taking the credit from the other person. It's always about upping the other person, and that kind of environment doesn't lead to bigger creative stuff from emerging,
Yeah.
for the world to see. It has to be collaborative. The best teams are collaborative. The best teams really build on each other, and the best teams really are not tearing each other down. So, that I think is the modeling that I also do. That if there is a person who's probably not up to the mark at this point in time, how do we enable them to reach their best potential? Because each one of us inherently has something that no one else can offer and that no one else can bring to the table. So how just we bring that those connections out?
Mhm. So then, okay, do you think that empathy is a universal language? Like just how you speak about things. You are obviously incredibly feeling person and incredibly emotionally intelligent person. And I feel like when I'm talking to you, you are constantly, you are always being aware of what another person is going through, right? Or what another person like could be experiencing. Um, I know that like I tell people like, hey, like empathy is a skill or like going to have to grow over time. However, I do think that some people are just naturally incredibly empathetic. Um, and in and well, like I think that you are, I think that I am, and I think that it can translate across cultures. But in your experience, just with your platform and your work, do you think that empathy is a universal language and that everyone can understand, everyone can see, everyone can feel?
I do feel that that's how it should be. I
Mhm.
don't I don't always agree that everybody is empathic, because I have come across people who have a hard time putting themselves into other people's shoes, and probably they have their reasons, no hard feelings, but sometimes it's it's difficult to see that in the other person. But I completely agree that it should be the universal human language, because that's what sets us apart as human beings. Our best work has always come from teams. Our best inventions and innovations, revolutions have come from understanding what the person needs. Even the birth of something as beautiful as democracy has only happened knowing that everyone's right is important, that no one else can be less. And somewhere it's coming from an understanding of the empathy that I wouldn't have wanted this to happen to myself. And this entire community group is being subjected to it. So how can I change that? And then people coming together. So empathy should be actually the universal language, because we can make a really beautiful world with the kind of creativity, with the kind of ability we as human beings have. We can solve for most problems that exist today. I think the most problems that we have today are all human created, are due to lack of empathy, are due to lack of understanding. So it should be the universal language. But yes, I do have to say that not everybody gets it. It's a language that needs to be taught, probably, if somebody doesn't have the natural knack to have it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Right. A lot of our problems, or as you said, all of our problems, and I have a hard time disagreeing with that, are definitely man-made, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we could do a lot better if we did just take a moment to just have a conversation with someone to like get another perspective. I'm always like, there are times when like I want to be like incredibly judgmental and like have like a snap judgment. So like I'm always like, wait a second. I don't know the entire context of what's going on in this other person's life. So who am I to judge why they're behaving how they're behaving, right? They could be having a bad day. Things could be going really wrong. They could have a sick parent or whatever. And I definitely feel that like if we as a culture, if we just, had that sort of pull back of like, I don't know what's going on in another person's life, so I should just err on the side of kindness and grace, then I think that we could solve a lot of problems. So many problems.
Yes.
Um, so another thing that I sort of like to touch on is vulnerability. I feel like empathy and vulnerability, they really do just go hand in hand. And I know that you talked about your experience with oppression and seeking out help. But has there ever been another moment in your life or in your work where you had to really lead with vulnerability? And like, if so, what did that moment teach you about yourself and about, I don't know, life in general?
Yeah, I mean, I always, and I absolutely, there have been many moments when I've been vulnerable, and I just feel that acknowledging vulnerability is a great thing because it allows you first to accept something from other people that can heal parts of you or can enable parts of you. But also, in that sense, it's always good to know that you're only human, as
Mhm.
human beings, we tend to take over everything and everyone and every situation and want to believe that we can make everything happen, but sometimes not. And knowing that you are just a human and it really helps you because then you can go uh, beyond the arrogance of I know it all and learn in other potential ways that can enrich you. So I've been through many things as a startup founder. Of course, when I was starting the journey, I was in a great job, a very secure job with a lot of money. And when you become a founder, you believe that the first day when you launch something, which obviously is needed, the numbers are perfect, the kind of industry looks perfect. But then the business happens, and oh my God, you're not there, and then you end up into financial problems, or then there are difficulties, sleepless nights, late nighters, and going back to the drawing board, coming out from it. And that's a very difficult time for you to accept your vulnerability as a human being. But I think I have done that couple of times and in different ways, and I feel it helps because every time when that happens, the resilience kicks in. If there is no vulnerability acceptance, then there is no resilience also, because then you basically just as a fool keep banging at different places believing that things will just work out. But when you accept a vulnerability, you do allow resilience to kick in, and you then allow good ideas to kick in as well, or what you can do next. So it's really important to embrace vulnerability. And as startup founders or people who are, like you said, you're a one woman army, you are a one woman show, you have this business, you've done it all by yourselves, then for people like us, it becomes a great support, because when we are in touch with our own vulnerability and can allow other people to come and at least share what we are going through, there can be great ways to come out of whatever we are struggling with or dealing with. So I feel that we all are vulnerable from time to time. It just needs a bigger person to accept it and kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that answer. Yeah. Yeah. Resilience is a really big one, right? Because there are times I feel like you can go down two paths when you sort of like allow vulnerability in. Like, either it's this makes me feel ashamed and small, so I'm going to run away from it, or it's, this is also a part of me, and I have to figure out how I can use this in tandem with all of the other things that I view as positive and beneficial. And I think that when we do like really lead with vulnerability, I mean, there is a resilience factor that I swear comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we're superheroes. I
Yeah.
totally agree. I kind of want to close it out on here. So I began this show way back, I don't know, like a year ago at this point, or no, 9 months ago, I think. It's been a while. I began this show as a way to sort of give people some sort of positive connotation with AI technology and, us as people, right? I think that there's so much, as I was saying before, there's a lot of just really negative things being said about what could happen as a result of like AI just being incorporated in a lot of things. And yeah, it is going to take things away, but it's also going to add a lot, right? And so I always want to leave people with a message of positivity and with a message of hope. So what gives you the most hope about the intersection of empathy and automation and innovation just going forward?
I think it would be equity. If we build AI in the right direction with empathy, if we solve for real problems where currently a lot of services people do not have access to because they've been locked out of those services due to their cost, due to the lack of just the resources. AI can be a great enabler in bringing equity. AI can be a great enabler in bringing everyone up to speed with knowledge. Also, a lot of educational foundational systems can be built on AI, which can bring education that is scientific, that is that was otherwise very privy to a certain class and section of people. So I have most hope from AI in what it can do for equity. The only caveat there is, do we build it for equity, and can we continue building it for equity? And if we do that, then I think world may look like a much brighter, much better place in 10 years from now. Yeah, and it could really enable the coming generation, because the kind of information that one can get today because of AI, the kind of access that one can get with just AI, I am so hopeful for our next generation. Like that's a beautiful tool in their hands, and if it can be shaped for equity, then I think we'll do some brilliant things as human beings, and the world may look very different 10 years from now in a good way.
Love it. I love it. Shipra, it has been an incredible conversation. You are doing just some of the coolest work that I've heard of. And you have given me a lot of hope about the future in a way that I didn't know that I needed. So thank you for all of the work that you're doing. Where can people find you, and how can people be a part of your platform?
I will post down on this post my email ID that people can reach out me at, and then my LinkedIn profile, and all of the work that I do is available through to web platforms and app platforms. I'll post the links down there, and so that'll be a great way for the world to become a little smaller through your platform. And I think, and I must say, and I must congratulate you that firstly, you look stunning. Second, you
Well,
do
thank you.
stunning work. And third, this is such a needed topic, and you're the one who's been pursuing it for 9 months. And thank you for actually bringing these dialogues to the forefront. They're much needed. And so, and I completely, thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you.
Oh, same. You were wonderful. Thank you so much. And to everyone else, we'll see you again next week for the next episode of Empathy and Automation. All right.